it's great when you kind of continue building on what you've, secured, you've built the backlog, and then you're moving it straight into the water and into the deployment phase. Because that's really where it really starts mattering. Because when you have assets deployed, that's when the data starts streaming. That's when, customers start seeing the value in what they're getting for what they've procured. And I think that enables us to then build up and expand our business even further.
Very welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Philipp Stratmann. He is the CEO of Ocean Power Technologies. And Philipp, it's great to see you again. How are you?
Doing well. Good to be on again, Steve.
Yeah, good to have you along, and exciting when you've had a couple of pieces of news out. One out this morning, a really substantial one, an award with the U.S. Coast Guard. So this is an exciting one. Tell me a little bit about the work with the Coast Guard and lead into this contract.
Yeah, absolutely. We announced the Buoy contract earlier this year, which it seems like a long time ago, but I think it was only in early January. And this contract follows hot on the heels of that. So this now is the contract to go and install and deploy these buoys as soon as possible and vessels are available. So what that continues to show is not only are we continuing to build backlog, but now we are transitioning that backlog into providing operational assets that Coast Guard and our other customers can then use. And we're very excited about moving this to the next phase and showcasing and highlighting the ability of our systems to provide the data that Coast Guard is looking for.
Yeah, and recurring business is always great as well. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's great when you kind of continue building on what you've, secured, you've built the backlog, and then you're moving it straight into the water and into the deployment phase. Because that's really where it really starts mattering. Because when you have assets deployed, that's when the data starts streaming. That's when, customers start seeing the value in what they're getting for what they've procured. And I think that enables us to then build up and expand our business even further.
Yeah, and expanding internationally as well. The other piece of news you had this week is you're shipping vehicles. This one in Greece. I mean, it sounds like it's a worldwide story for the company.
It is. Obviously, we've been very, vocal and public about the work we've been doing in the Middle East, some of the work we've been doing in Latin America. We're very excited to now start working in the Mediterranean, start moving assets, in this case to Greece. And what this shows is that we continue to build our installed base of assets around the world. With all the work we're doing, obviously domestically in the United States, we still have a large business that is concentrated on providing commercial solutions to customers, no matter where they're based. And the larger the installed base, the more need for field service representative services, the more need for operation services. It just helps continue us growing in multiple ways.
And you're also not resting on your laurels. You're looking for technological advancements as well. And this is more of the offshore stuff, charging things like that. Talk to me a little bit about that part of where the story's at.
Yeah, it's something we identified, a year or so ago. It's really pushing into the docking and charging space. USVs in general are becoming, well, I wouldn't say ubiquitous, but they're definitely becoming a lot more talked about.
Yeah.
But how do you then provide the docking and charging services to those? Obviously, in our view, buoys come straight to mind. So what we're working on now is getting to the stage where we can roll out a commercial docking and charging solutions that lets, initially our USVs and then in future stages other people's USVs come along, offload their data, charge up, and then go and do their next job. That way around, you really end up with persistent and resident autonomy out at the edge in the ocean. It's a bit like a gas station for USVs, really, but autonomously enabled out in the ocean.
Yeah. Um, I want to ask you one last thing, and that is something you talked about a little earlier in the interview about converting on your backlog and your delivering capabilities. That's obviously key as you've got sales and you want to make sure those sales move into vehicles in the water.
Yeah, and I think the Coast Guard project is a prime example of how we're looking at doing this. We get inventory ready, we secure the contract, and then we work on the deployment and get the assets out there. Similar to the Greece project, it shipped, so now we can start working on the other services. We've There's always going to be some lumpiness that comes in the conversion of the backlog, I think, we continue converting that backlog and building upon it at the same time. With that comes inventory build-out that we're working on. And yeah, we're pretty excited or where things are heading.
Yeah. Philip, thanks very much. Good update today. Congratulations on that contract. And it's exciting news for you and the team. And we look forward to more information as that becomes available. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on again, Steve.
All right. Good to see you. Philip Stratmann, the CEO of Ocean Power Technologies.